Namaste, yogis. I want to share some of the teachings from Sutra 1.33. Now, I happen to really love this one because it begins to address how we interact with people in the world, which, you know, is a cause of a lot of our problems, is bad interactions or not understanding kind of how to be. And we didn't get a rule book. So this is a very beautiful teaching. Basically, it talks about how in relationships, our mind becomes purified by cultivating feelings of friendliness towards those who are happy, compassion for those who are suffering, goodwill towards the virtuous, and indifference or neutrality towards those we perceive as wicked or evil. Now, this is something that we practice, not something that's like natural per se, because, especially when we're talking about someone who's wicked, it's really, really hard to kind of arrive at this feeling of neutrality. But there's a reason why we practice this. So let me talk a little bit about each one of these four different types of people we might meet. And so we're talking about like the state the person is in. So the first one, this is really interesting. We meet someone who is happy or joyful. And I always think about this, like you're at the coffee shop, you're really tired, you didn't sleep good, you haven't had your coffee yet, you're kind of grumpy to say the least. And your friend comes up and she just met the most amazing guy. And all she wants to do is tell you about it. And she's really, really happy. Well, how do you feel? You might feel like you want some distance. You might feel resistance. You might feel resentment, frustrate. You might feel all kinds of negativity because you're just not really into that vibe yet. But this is where this comes in very useful. So what we practice, the skill is we notice, okay, I don't feel like dealing with this right now. But okay, that's now that I know that, what am I going to do? My friend's in a joyous state. So what we do is we cultivate friendliness or kindness. So when the person is gushing and they're excited and we're not really feeling receptive to that, we don't want to damage this person. So we practice consciously being mindful of kind of our own response and then just kind of letting that go and being with the other person and saying, wow, I'm so happy for you, or being present. And that, this is very useful. Now the next one gets a little bit heavier. So this is the second attitude, what we cultivate towards people who are feeling pain or suffering. You can think about this like if you've ever had a family member that's going through some sort of illness and you have to take care of them. And for the first little bit, you're okay with it, but then it becomes an imposition or a frustration, or you start to resent them. And even though you might normally think of yourself as a compassionate and caring person, you may have had other plans and you have to go and take care of someone who's sick. So what we do, instead of allowing that feeling to continue and developing, a resentment towards the person, we cultivate a different attitude. And the attitude that we cultivate is one of compassion and support. And this just means that we're like, maybe you can't do everything. Just because someone's not doing well doesn't mean you have to fix everything in their life. But you can at least have an attitude of compassion and support, and you can do what you can do. So this is something that we cultivate because we would want that kind of mercy, that grace when we're not feeling good. So we remind ourselves of this, even though it may not feel easy at the time. It's better to be skillful and to practice this. Okay, so now the third one, this is interesting. This is what we do when we come across a person who's virtuous, benevolent. What if you met a person who was born into a wealthy family and they're actually a good person and they do good things? They're also physically healthy and attractive. Oh my God, they have all the things. And our tendency might be to feel, again, jealousy or to feel inadequate or to feel less than. But instead, what we practice, according to the Yoga Sutras, is happiness and goodwill. Look, there's a beautiful expression of humanity. And yes, they were born with a lot of gifts, but most people that are born with gifts actually squander them and become not so auspicious. You find an actual good person who has wealth and resources to do something good, feel sweetness in your heart towards them. Don't be jealous. We all have different lives, but this is something that we want to practice because the tendency is to see someone who's maybe gone further than us, seems bigger than us, seems more successful, and to just hate on that person, to criticize that person. Yoga says, feel goodwill. Hey, look, you're doing well. Be joyous for that being. So I find that one really useful. This is not an easy world. And when you see someone doing something that's bigger, broader, better than what you can do right now, don't resent them. Don't tear them down. Just say, wow, well done. I would really hope that I can get to that place. And in this way, you'll feel that your heart stays broad and doesn't get the twisting constriction of jealousy. All right. And the last one, this is the hardest one, the fourth one. This is the attitude that we cultivate in ourselves towards those who are wicked or evil or doing bad things. And the first thing that we have to overcome is we're going to feel angry. We want to punish them. We want to hurt them. It's wrong. We know it. It's injustice. And while all of those things may be true and need to be addressed, inside of us, the attitude that we want to have is one of neutral observation or watching without becoming emotional. Because if we disturb our own chemistry by getting really angry at a bad person, that's two bads. So first, you're poisoning yourself, and we already know that person is not healthy. You can neutrally, with equanimity, observe someone who is unethical, doing bad things, know that what they're doing is wrong, but also not have the anger in our heart, because that's a poison to ourselves. So I'm not saying this is easy. It's not easy for me at all. But what I will say is that it's worth it to try to do this, because the difference when you can say, okay, I don't have to become emotionally disturbed. I can recognize that all this behavior is wrong, unethical, bad, and that I maybe need to do something about it without also having myself poisoned. And so this is one of these teachings. It's four different everybody falls into one of these four categories, ironically. Yeah. It's a very useful teaching. And when you were having those four categories of people that we struggle dealing with, when the relationship is good, there's no categories, but these are the four struggles that we have when we're dealing with relationships with others. People are either going to be in A, they're happy and you're kind of not. B, they're suffering and you're not, and you help. C, they're doing much better than you, and you need to cultivate not being jealous, but actually saying, hey, you know what? Well done. And four, they're D, 4D. They're they're wicked or excuse me, unethical, or somehow having a bad way in life. And you can recognize that without being drawn in to the anger and frustration in our heart. So these practices are developed for how we are to interact with others so that we don't generate karmas, upsets, disturbances, emotional things, and we can kind of know how to navigate our life while following our duty, our dharma, and also finding a way to feel good at the same time. So I hope this was helpful. This teaching has really helped me, especially in any of these situations, to have a guide point, to know a map, to know how to handle whatever's happening. If you like these teachings, I do have some things upcoming. So around this, you'll find a link if you want to check into those other offerings and continue studying, continue looking, continue observing. Namaste.